My name is Megan. I am 23. And a few months ago, I thought moving back in with my parents was the smartest decision I had ever made. I had just graduated, landed my first real job, and I was proud of myself. The plan was simple: live at home for a year, help out a little, stack every paycheck I could, and then move into my own place with a solid savings account and a clean slate. I was not supposed to become the villain in a family war. The first sign that my plan was about to explode was one phone call. My sister announced she was coming home for a while, sounding strangely casual for someone who claimed she was broke. I expected a short visit. Instead, she arrived with suitcases, two kids, and a husband who would not even look me in the eye when he carried in their boxes. Within days, my parents were talking about helping them get back on their feet. And suddenly, my quiet safety net turned into a crowded crisis shelter. It did not take long before the unspoken expectation showed up. I was young, single, working from relatively close by. I was available. Free childcare, free help, free emotional cushion for everyone but me. The worst part was not the noise or the chaos. It was the way everyone looked at me like this was obvious, like my own life could be paused just because theirs was falling apart. By the time I realized how deep I was in, I had already started paying more than my fair share of the household bills and rearranging my life around their needs. I had no idea that one day, those same bills would become my sharpest weapon. So here is the question I had to ask myself. When your own family treats you like free labor, do you keep sacrificing your future? Or do you finally choose yourself and let them deal with the fallout? Stay with me, because the way this ended shocked even me. When my sister's family first settled in, everyone kept saying it was temporary. A month, maybe two, just until they recovered from a rough patch. I wanted to believe that. I told myself I could put up with some noise and chaos if it meant helping my family. I was grateful my parents had taken me in while I saved money. Helping out felt fair, but temporary quietly turned into routine. At first, it was small favors. Could I watch the kids while she went to the store? Could I sit with them for an hour while she had a quick meeting? Those hours stretched into entire afternoons. Soon, my Saturdays disappeared under piles of toys, spilled juice, and the constant background track of cartoons. I worked full-time at a marketing firm, and my weekdays were draining enough. I had deadlines, clients, and a boss who expected quick turnarounds. Yet somehow, everyone acted like my job was flexible just because I was not married with kids. If someone needed to go to an appointment or just get out of the house, the automatic solution was me. The financial part slid in just as quietly. My parents had taken on extra expenses with four more people in the house, and they were too proud to say no. Groceries got more expensive. The utility bills climbed. One evening, my dad sighed over the stack of envelopes on the table, and guilt punched me in the chest. Before I could think, I heard myself say, "I can cover the electric bill this month." It did not stop there. Next came the internet bill, then part of the groceries. I told myself it was only fair. I was working. I lived here. I should contribute. But while I was cutting back on my own spending, I watched my sister brag on social media about self-care days and little treats she deserved after such stressful months. She would come home with new clothes, fresh nails, coffees from fancy places in town, talking about how she needed to decompress, while I tried to convince myself that sharing the cost of groceries made me generous, not naive. The line between helping and being used blurred fast. My parents kept praising me for being responsible and mature. My sister just looked relieved, as if my contributions were the most natural thing in the world. And slowly, without anyone saying it out loud, I became two things at once: the extra wallet and the default babysitter. I started keeping mental notes. How many hours I spent alone with the kids, how many bills I covered, how many times my sister mentioned applying for jobs but never actually sent out a resume. I did not know it yet, but those quiet observations were the first bricks in the wall I would eventually build between us. The day everything shifted from annoying to unbearable was a Tuesday that already felt too long. I had stayed late at work, polishing a presentation my boss wanted perfect. By the time I drove home, my eyes burned, and my brain felt like it was running on fumes. All I wanted was a hot shower, leftovers, and silence. Instead, as soon as I stepped through the door, I heard chaos. The kids were screaming, my sister was on the couch scrolling her phone, and my parents were nowhere in sight. For a moment, no one even noticed I had come home. I dropped my bag and watched my sister lazily glance over at me. "Oh, good, you're here," she said, as if she had ordered me like a rideshare. "Tom and I are going out for a bit. The kids have already had dinner. You just need to keep an eye on them." She stood up, grabbed her purse, and yelled for Tom without waiting for my response. Something snapped inside me. "Rachel," I said, sharper than I intended. "I just got home from work. I'm exhausted. I have a deadline tomorrow. You didn't even ask if I was free." She rolled her eyes, the same way she used to when we were teenagers and she thought I was being dramatic. "Megan, it's just a couple of hours. Mom gets overwhelmed and Dad is working late. You live here for free. The least you can do is help." I felt my jaw tighten. I do help. I help a lot. I watch them all the time. I pay bills. I cook dinner half the week. You act like I owe you my entire life because I'm not married with kids. Tom stepped into the doorway then, keys in hand. "Hey, what's the problem?" "We already told Mom we'd be out," he said, as if the decision had been made and my opinion was irrelevant. The problem was simple and massive at the same time. To them, my time was automatically less valuable. My dreams could wait. My work could be pushed around. Their fun could not. "No," I said, the word tasting strange in my mouth because I almost never used it with them. "I can't tonight. I have work to finish. You two need to find another solution." Rachel stared at me like I had slapped her. "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious," I replied, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "I am not your built-in babysitter. I am your sister. That has to mean something more than free childcare and paying half the house expenses." The kids had gone strangely quiet, sensing the tension. In that moment, I saw something ugly flash across Rachel's face. Not hurt, not confusion, but irritation that her convenient arrangement was being threatened. For the first time since they moved in, I realized this was not just chaos or a temporary inconvenience. This was a system that worked for everyone but me. And if I did not tear it down myself, no one else was going to do it for me. That night, I locked my door, opened my laptop, and instead of finishing my work right away, I started a list. At the top, I wrote, "What I pay for versus what they pay for." I had no idea that list would later become the blueprint for my revenge. Once I wrote that first list, it was like a fog lifted. I started tracking everything. How many hours I watched the kids in a week. How often my sister and her husband went out. Every bill I partly or fully covered. I pulled up my bank statements and scrolled through months of charges I had barely registered. Grocery runs that included snacks for the kids, online orders my sister had paid me back for later and never did, utilities drafted from my account because it was easier if one person handled it. I did the math. It was sickening. For someone supposedly living at home to save money, I was funding a lifestyle that was not even mine. I realized that without my contributions, my sister's little comfort bubble would burst fast. Meanwhile, the babysitting requests did not slow down. If anything, they increased when my sister noticed I was pulling back emotionally. She doubled down on guilt. "You know we would do the same for you someday," she said one night. as if she had ever sacrificed anything for me in her life. I remembered our childhood then, how she used to push chores on me, charm our parents into believing she was the responsible one while I quietly picked up the slack. It hit me. Nothing about this dynamic was new. It was just bigger, louder, and more expensive now. The breaking point came on a payday Friday. I got my deposit and, for the first time, felt no excitement. I watched most of it vanish on autopay, utilities, internet, part of the mortgage contribution my parents had reluctantly accepted from me, even though Rachel and Tom were also using the same house, same water, same electricity. Not a single draft came from my sister's account. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and that growing list, and something inside me hardened. I did not yell. I did not cry. I planned. If they were going to treat me like an endless resource, then I would do the most adult, responsible thing I could. Cut off the resource, not out of spite, but out of survival. If my generosity was the foundation holding up their bad habits, the only way to change anything was to pull that foundation away and let them feel the weight of their own choices. Step 1. Find my own place. I expanded my apartment search radius, looked into studio units, and adjusted my expectations. Maybe I would not get the dream apartment right away. Fine. I did not need perfect. I needed mine. Step 2. Quietly untangle my finances from the house. I changed the payment method for the electric bill back to my dad's account, told the internet provider to end the automatic drafts from my card at the end of the cycle, and stopped volunteering to pay for little extras. I did not announce it. I simply prepared to leave. Step 3. Choose my moment. I knew if I told them too early, the guilt, begging, and emotional manipulation would start. They would accuse me of abandoning family, of being cold, selfish, ungrateful. So I waited for the next inevitable explosion. It did not take long. All it took was one more casual demand, one more night where my sister expected me to watch her kids while she took a break, for everything to ignite. And when it did, I was ready, not just to refuse the babysitting, but to walk away from the entire arrangement. The final blow-up started over something so predictable it almost felt scripted. It was a Saturday morning, my only real day off. I had made plans to meet a coworker for brunch, partly to network, partly to talk about a potential promotion. I came downstairs dressed, keys in hand, feeling almost like a normal 23-year-old. My sister was at the table scrolling her phone, a half-eaten piece of toast on her plate. The kids were already in pajamas with cartoons playing in the background. Tom was nowhere to be seen. "Perfect timing," she said without even looking up. "Tom and I are going to check out this new brewery downtown. The kids are already settled, so you just need to keep an eye on them. We'll be back before dinner." "No," I said immediately. No hesitation this time. "I've got plans. I told you days ago I was going out today." She finally looked at me, frowning. "Seriously, you can reschedule. It's not like your brunch is more important than us getting a break." Something inside me flipped. I placed my keys on the counter and pulled out my phone. "Rachel, I need you to listen because I'm only going to say this once." She crossed her arms, already on defense. "Here we go. For months I've been working full-time, helping with the kids, and paying bills that are not mine," I began. "I pay the electric bill, I covered the internet for the last 3 months, I pick up groceries, and I basically gave up my weekend so you and Tom could run off and relax while I stayed home. That ends today." Her jaw dropped. "You act like we're not struggling. We didn't ask to be in this situation." I stared at her. "You know what struggling looks like? Working, saving, and still choosing not to dump your responsibilities on someone else. You too deleted job alert emails because they sounded too far or not fun enough. You bought new clothes while I pulled back on everything just to keep this house functioning. You are not just struggling. You are comfortable letting other people carry you. My dad walked in midway, catching the tail end of my words. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. Rachel was faster. "Megan's mad because we asked her to help again. Apparently we're all using her now." I did not let myself get drowned out. I turned to my parents and spoke clearly. "I am not just mad about today. I am done with being the live-in babysitter and extra paycheck. I have been paying your electric, your internet, part of your groceries, while also watching the kids almost every weekend. I moved home to save money, not to bankroll and raise someone else's family." My mom opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly blindsided by the details. I realized then that my sister had never told them exactly who was paying what. "We're family," my dad said slowly. "We all pitch in." I nodded. "Exactly. So from now on, everyone can pitch in without pretending that I'm the only one who can manage the bills or the kids. Because I am moving out. I already found a place. I signed the lease yesterday." The room went silent. Even the cartoon noise felt distant. Rachel's face twisted in disbelief. "You're kidding. You're going to run off and leave Mom and Dad with everything while we're still trying to get back on our feet?" "No," I replied, calm now. "I'm stopping the part where I secretly pay your way. My automatic payments are canceled after this month. You'll have to cover your share or adjust your lifestyle. I am done funding it. I am done babysitting every time you want to breathe." "You can't just cut us off," she snapped. "I can," I said, "and I already have." The words hung between us, sharp and final. It was the first time I saw real fear in her eyes, not just irritation, because for the first time she understood. This time, her safety net was walking away on purpose. The fallout started almost immediately. Within a week of my announcement, I packed my room into labeled boxes, stacked them by the door, and took carload after carload to my tiny new studio on the other side of town. It was not glamorous. The kitchen was small, the view overlooked a parking lot, and the walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbor's TV. But every square foot was mine. My parents moved through the house like ghosts, caught between wanting to support me and not wanting to confront what my sister had done. My mom kept saying she wished everyone could just get along, as if this was a simple disagreement and not months of silent exploitation. My dad was quieter than usual, spending more time at work, less time at the dinner table where the arguments had started. Rachel, on the other hand, became louder. She stomped around, slamming doors, complaining about suddenly rising bills, and how the unfair timing of everything was making their lives harder. At first, she tried guilt. Texts like, "The kids miss you, they don't understand why you won't help anymore," buzzed on my phone. I read them, put the phone down, and refused to respond until I could answer without shaking. Then came the financial reality. When the next round of bills hit, my name was no longer attached. The electric bill did not autopay. The internet company called the house to ask why the card on file had been removed. Groceries did not magically appear in the fridge when my mom's pension arrived and my sister's bank account stayed untouched. One afternoon, while I came by to drop off a box I had forgotten, I walked in on an argument. My dad was holding a bill in his hand, his face flushed. "Rachel, this is $300 higher than usual," he said. "You told me Megan was helping with this." "She was," Rachel snapped, shooting me a glare when she noticed I was in the doorway. "But she decided she's too good for us now." I met my dad's eyes. I was helping Dad. A lot. But I can't keep doing it. I moved home to save money, not to support another full household on my starting salary. They need to take responsibility for their own bills. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to argue. Then he exhaled, shoulders sagging. "Is that true? You were paying this much?" I nodded. "Check the previous statements." They're under my card. He did. The truth was right there in black and white. The color drained from his face. My mom, who had been listening from the doorway, started to cry quietly. Not the loud dramatic kind, but the small exhausted tears of someone who finally sees a weight she had refused to name. In the days that followed, the tone in the house changed. My parents stopped taking my sister's side so blindly. When she complained about money, they reminded her she and her husband needed to get proper jobs, not just side gigs and vague plans. Babysitting requests went from demands to awkward, hesitant questions that I could comfortably say no to. Meanwhile, in my studio, I was learning what it meant to live without apology. I cooked simple meals, paid my own smaller bills on time, and watched my savings slowly climb instead of drain. I did not have much, but nothing I had was being siphoned by someone else's laziness. My revenge was not loud. I did not destroy anyone's life or scream my triumph. I simply took back what was mine: my time, my money, and my future. The punishment came naturally when my sister had to face the reality she had spent months dodging. A few months after I moved out, I visited my parents on a Sunday afternoon. The house felt different the moment I stepped in. Quieter, heavier. There were fewer toys scattered around, fewer shoes piled near the door. I did not see my sister's purse on the counter, and the kids' voices were nowhere in the background. "They moved out last week," my mom said softly when she saw me looking. "They found a small apartment across town. It's not as nice as here, but it's theirs." I stood there, letting that sink in. For so long, it felt like I was the one holding everything together while being slowly crushed underneath it. Walking away had felt like betrayal, even though I knew logically it was the only way to survive. Now, seeing the empty hallway, I finally saw what my revenge had really done. It had forced my sister to stand on her own 2 feet, whether she liked it or not. Apparently, when my financial support disappeared and my parents stopped cushioning every consequence, tension exploded. Bills went unpaid. My dad refused to let the house slide into debt because of 2 grown adults who would not work full-time. After one particularly ugly fight, he told them they had 3 months to contribute fairly or move out. They moved out. Part of me felt vindicated. They were finally living the life they kept pretending they were ready for, without a built-in babysitter and extra wallet. But another part of me ached, because no matter how justified I was, these were still my parents, my niece, my nephew, my sister. We were not strangers. We were just broken in a way I was no longer willing to fix alone. I still see the kids sometimes. I pick them up for ice cream or take them to the park. When I drop them off at their small, cluttered apartment, I notice the tired look in my sister's eyes. She works now. Real shifts, real hours. Her nails are chipped, her clothes less new. She looks like someone finally living in reality instead of hiding behind other people's efforts. We are polite, careful. She has not apologized in the way I once fantasized about. There is no dramatic breakdown, no cinematic confession, but there are small signs. She asks about my job. She does not ask for money. When I say I have to leave, she does not try to guilt me into staying. One evening, as I buckled my niece into her seat, Sophie asked, "Aunt Megan, why don't you live with Grandma and Grandpa anymore?" I smiled, my chest tightening. "Because I needed a place that was mine," I said. "And because sometimes, loving your family means giving everyone space to grow up." Driving back to my studio, I rolled down the window and let the air rush in. My life was far from perfect. I still worried about money. I still missed the version of my sister I wish I had. But I no longer felt trapped. The bills I paid were mine. The time I spent was my choice. People always talk about revenge like it has to be loud, cruel, or dramatic. Mine was simple. I stopped letting them live off sacrifices they refused to acknowledge. I moved out. I cut off the bills that kept them comfortable. I forced the story to change. Will my sister and I ever be as close as we might have been if things had gone differently? I do not know. Maybe one day she will tell me she is sorry. Maybe she will not. But I have finally learned that my worth is not measured in how much I can endure for other people. And if you are listening to this wondering whether it makes you a bad person to stop being the family scapegoat and safety net, here is the truth. I wish someone had told me sooner. Choosing yourself is not cruelty. It is the first real act of love you owe to your own life.